Hey guys, welcome back to another unboxing and review video. So today we have the JOE Retaliation Ultimate Flint. So this figure was part of the 3.5 wave that included a lot of the ultimate versions of the movie accurate characters. So Flint has always been my favorite G.I. Joe throughout the years. And so it was really nice about getting this version. I really liked the guy that played, I think it was DJ Chrono was the guy that played Flint in Retaliation. Flint and Roadblock, as well as Lady J, that was what the premise of the story was about. So it was nice to see that they were going away from Duke and the entire G.I. Joe team, and they focused on a very small version of or a small portion of the characters and characters that I really appreciate and really love. So what you have in front of you, this is the movie accurate version of Flint. He's decked out kind of in that that last big fight scene at the end of the movie where he has a grenade launcher, he blows some stuff up. It's pretty cool. And he comes packaged with a bunch of weapons and a parachute. We can get into that in a second, but let's take a look at the packaging. So, after Hasbro went away from the 25th line and the Pursuit of Cobra, they went into this kind of movie style packaging, which has been like no other G.I. Joe packaging that they've had. I'm not a fan of it. The colors for it don't scream G.I. Joe to me. Having Roadblock up top doesn't scream G.I. Joe to me. I'm not a big fan of this. Again, like with the Articulation logo for Flint, he's not a ninja. There's no point of it. But that's how they had every single layout for these figures, similar along like the lines of this right here, right? Arashikage, not a member of that ninja clan, so I don't know why it's on Flint, but it's not just on Flint's packaging, it's on every single one of the G.I. Joe line figures. I'm just not a fan of the way they package the Retaliation figures. What I will say is pretty nice about this is that you get some nice display art of the figure included. We get a nice little bio right up here. And then kind of the gimmick for this set is the working parachute. So it is not attached to Flint. Out of prior experience with this, it's a pain to get this hooked up, but it does work. So they include a harness for Flint. You actually have to remove the tactical vest that he's in, his head, to get him all the way in this. And then these little clips clip on to these little female portion clips. And then the sucker opens up and you can drop them. Now, what I will say is that it is a very cool gimmick to have a working parachute. The G.I. Joe logo is displayed across the top of the parachute. Personally, I would not drop my Flint with this parachute off of anything because it's still a toy. These are fragile, and on top of that, this doesn't have enough like drag or slow down before that figure is going to take a nice little hit onto the ground. So if you find, if you have a nice little surface where you can drop your figures where it's not going to damage them, by all means go ahead and do it. But I have hardwood floor in my house, and I'm not dropping my figure on hardwood floor. So with the inclusion of the parachute, the other additional accessories for the set are the grenade launcher in Flint's hand. We have a really nice in kind of a tan style tactical pump shotgun. This was included in a bunch of lines, or a bunch of figures in this line. I think, the Duke figure had them, Lady J had it, I think Roadblock had it as well. So it's a nice inclusion, it's a cool shotgun. Flint is known to use a shotgun, so that's always nice to see that they included a shotgun for Flint. We get some type of, what I would assume to be a assault rifle of some sort. Bent barrel, but nice to say the least. In Gunmetal Gray, we get some sort of a pulse rifle, some futuristic weapon. This weapon was not used in the movie at all, so I don't know why it was packaged in the figure, but anyways, it's included, so that's cool. Nice accessory to say the least. Then we get a two variations of the MP7, so you get the MP7 with a forward grip in the down position, and then we get an MP7 with a red dot and a suppressor. So very cool submachine guns, very cool that they included both versions. I like them, they're pretty neat submachine guns. And then the last accessory that Flint was packaged with was this crash helmet that you're supposed to have him wear while he's in the parachute, because safety first, right? Even even with the figure, it's a nice accessory. It it is what it is. So let's get into the figure. So Flint, in my opinion, this was the I think like the third version or the third variation that they released in the G.I. Joe Retaliation line of the figure. They had an initial one that came on a motorcycle, and they had one in Wave 2, which was nice, but there was no articulation from the waist down. Like the ankles didn't move. It was really hard to pose the figure. So that was very difficult. So it had been kind of difficult for a while to get a movie accurate Flint on the Retaliation line that could actually be posed well. As you can see, what's nice about this Ultimate Flint as opposed to the other Ultimate figures in the Wave is that Duke, with the articulation cuts that he has and the bulk that he has, he's unable to hold a weapon in a two-handed firing pose. Flint does not suffer from this issue. So Flint has standard G.I. Joe articulation, ball joint head, ball joint upper arms. He's got a swivel and hinge elbow, a swivel and hinge wrists on both sides. This one moves in and out, whereas the right-hand side goes up and down. There is an ab crunch underneath the tactical vest, but it is very hindered from the large tactical vest here, so the movement is very limited in that sense. Flint has ball joint hips on both legs. He's got double jointed knees, and then he's got very limited ankle. Like, it's very stiff. It doesn't appear to be a swivel, so it's up and down motion, and it is very, very stiff. So yeah, the thing about the Retaliation and the Ultimate figures were that these were distributed very poorly. There was very limited distribution for it. A lot of these didn't hit stores. Third-party prices kind of blew the prices up of this wave and referred to this wave as the Ultimate Wave, where this was the movie-accurate versions of the characters. These were the ones that you wanted to get if you were collectors. And I will agree, there's some really nice aspects of these figures for collecting, as well as just the representation of the movie. And for me, like, Flint has always been my favorite character. So when looking at, getting another Flint, obviously I'm gonna buy this. What I will say that I really like about the figure is that they do a really good job of movie accurateness towards the end. He's in some really nice ACU or Army Combat Uniform style pants. Very similar, that's very accurate digital printing to what ACU actually looks like. So that is really, really nice. That's a very nice attention to detail that they went to that effort to do that. The articulation cuts for this guy, it's nice to be able to have any kind of Joe that can actually hold their firearms in a semi-realistic pose. It's very disappointing when you're paying for, and I got this figure for $12.99, right? So it's now in the third-party prices right now, this figure goes for upwards of $60 to $70, given the rarity to it and the demand for the figure. So it's always crazy to me to see figures that are priced at that can't even hold their firearms. So it's nice to see that this version of Flint can hold his weapons in a semi-realistic pose. The inclusion of accessories are pretty good, in my opinion. I think you cannot have any Flint complete without a shotgun. So it's nice to see that they included a shotgun for Flint. Of course, we're going to struggle with trying to get him to stand at this point. The parachute gimmick, though, I mean, he didn't use it in the movie. I don't know why they included it again. This is very standard, typical Hasbro in the sense, and they did this with the entire 3.5 wave, where they included these kind of gimmicky accessories for the figures. The Ultimate Cobra Commander had one, Ultimate Storm Shadow had one. I mean, all of the figures had it. I don't know why they did it. They could have cut down on production costs. The thing is, they could have, instead of going with these types of gimmicks, they could have included better accessories. They could have focused on better articulation for the figures. Now, Flint does not suffer from the same issues as Duke does, but if they weren't so focused on doing all these gimmicky accessories, maybe they could have had some better figures. The one thing that I think, unfortunately, it's hard to call this the ultimate version of Flint. Flint is known for wearing a beret, right? That's kind of his that is his staple in the G.I. Joe realm. You can't have Flint or even think about Flint without seeing that beret. And it's a disappointment to see that this version doesn't have a beret packaged in. In Wave 2, they have the same head mold. DJ Corona's head mold looks, movie accurate and all that. And they included a beret for that. It actually looked pretty nice, to say the least. I don't know why they couldn't have included it. I would have much rather seen a removable beret with the set as opposed to the working parachute. But again, I don't make the choices. I'm just a collector, and I'm at the mercy of Hasbro. So looking at the figure, whether or not I would recommend this, it depends on what you're looking for. And what I mean by that is that right now, G.I. Joe prices are pretty crazy in the realm of collecting. Ever since the TV show came out of The Toys That Made Us, that kind of highlighted G.I. Joe in a sense. These figures blew up in price, and the inflation for it kind of got outrageous. So the third-party prices for these figures are really, really expensive. Like I said, I paid $12.99 for this figure. That's what it's valued to me. But it right now, if I wanted to buy a brand new one, I'd be paying upwards of $60 to $70 for the same exact figure. That's kind of silly to me in that sense. I don't think it's worth that much, but again, it's supply and demand. It's just kind of how the world works, and unfortunately right now with Hasbro, kind of nixing the G.I. Joe line or the G.I. Joe license, we don't have any G.I. Joe figures right now. So there's, it's kind of what was available is right now, and that's it. Now, the G.I. Joe, and they announced about a year ago, they are currently working on a new movie. It's going to be a Snake Eyes movie, so it's focused around Snake Eyes. Hasbro has announced within the last 6 months that they are going to be producing toys for that movie. So hopefully what that does is it kind of revamps the G.I. Joe line. However, I'm very hesitant about it, given the fact that the movie is focused around a ninja character. Not that Snake Eyes is bad in any sense. Snake Eyes is a lot of people's favorite characters, but I would argue that the figures that we're going to get are going to be very, very highly themed off of that movie, and I would be very surprised. I'd be happy, very optimistic. I'm very optimistic about it, but very surprised if Hasbro decides to, start making additional figures, expanding that universe again, similar to like what they did with the 25th anniversary line, where they just started, remaking modern style versions of the figures. So, if you're getting into G.I. Joe collecting right now, obviously the modern Joes are a lot cheaper to get than the vintage line. I personally don't like the vintage line. I don't collect vintage. I'm a fan of the modern. I like the articulation, and that's the biggest thing for me. I love G.I. Joe. I've always been a fan of it, but the articulation and the aspect of being able to posability of these figures, that's the reason why I continue to collect these figures. So when asking, me and like my recommendation for this figure, I would absolutely recommend this for a lot of reasons. It has great likeness to the movie accurate version of the character. It comes with a lot of great accessories. It does come with the inclusion of a shotgun, which is important for any Flint. And the articulation is there, right? The posability for this guy and the ability for him to actually have some semi-realistic gun posing, it's nice to see. So with that being said, I would absolutely recommend this. Unfortunately, I'm not going to recommend paying $70 for this figure. I wouldn't pay that much. But again, it's, if you could find this, I would say if you could find this for $30 or under, I would not hesitate on purchasing it. I know that there's some stores that do still sell a lot of G.I. Joe, or they deal with like buying toy collections from collectors. People come in and sell these types of things. If you can find a good deal on this on eBay or on Amazon, which it does happen on occasion, I would absolutely purchase this figure again for around that $30 price point. Anything over that, it just kind of gets to be that's kind of my that's my personal kind of limit. But again, if that's not yours, then go ahead with it. It's a phenomenal figure. I cannot speak more highly about this figure, given everything about it, and not just that it's Flint. There's, obviously there are things that would have been nicer or, better inclusions over the parachute, but even that, it's a very small gripe. It's something that you don't have to include with your display. You don't have to have him in, and if you do, you can, hook him up to a ceiling and have him displayed like he's jumping in a battle. So there are options for, what you want to do with it. With that being said, guys, I don't have a whole lot else to say about Flint. Again, I would absolutely recommend picking this up if you can get it under that $30 price point. These are currently available on Amazon as well as eBay, but they are expensive, so keep that in mind if if you're looking on those listings for this figure. With that being said, if you guys like the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you guys have the figure, or if you collect the Retaliation line out of the Ultimate Wave. I'm curious to see what you guys believe is the most popular or your favorite Ultimate figure out of the wave. But with that being said, guys, I'll catch you next time. Bye.